A British judge allows the pollution case against oil giant Shell to go forward. International health officials sound the alarm over the spread of the Zika virus. And Pakistan's film business is back in business, and not just because of Bollywood. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, Thursday is both World and Wildlife Day and African Environmental Day. But as these observances take place, Africa's wildlife, its elephants, rhinos, and other animals, is under tremendous pressure. There are two threats to their continued existence. One is the destruction of their native environment. Now, the second is poaching, which is illegal killing to get ivory, rhino horns, skins, and other wildlife products. U.S. lawmakers are now considering a measure that would put sharper legal teeth into penalties for illegal wildlife killings and trade in their parts. VOA senior investigative analyst Jeffrey Young has the details.
Rhino species have been on Earth for around 8 million years. In the last 10 years, we've seen the loss of the western subspecies of the black rhino, the northern white rhino reduced to just 3 individuals, and South Africa is currently losing 3 animals every single day.
Joe Shaw is the Rhino Program Manager for the World Wildlife Fund in South Africa. These animals are being illegally killed in startling numbers to satisfy a powerful demand, much of it in East Asia, for the rhino's distinctive horn. The NGO African Wildlife Foundation says poaching and habitat loss have driven down the black rhino's population on the continent by 97.6% since 1960. In South Africa alone, the number slaughtered by poachers has risen massively in recent years. The NGO Wild Aid reports that in 2007, 13 South African rhinos were illegally killed. A year later, that number jumped to 83. By 2013, the number poached in South Africa had soared to over 1,000. The main reason behind this slaughter all across Africa is the misguided belief in parts of Asia that rhino horn is some sort of folk remedy. It is creating an insatiable demand backed by big cash, causing some Africans to butcher these beasts. Elephants are also in the poachers' crosshairs, and the main target is the animal's ivory tusks. While the WWF believes that there are still some 470,000 African elephants scattered across 37 countries, the slaughter has been horrific. Another conservation group estimates that as many as 100,000 elephants were illegally killed for various reasons in one 2-year span from 2010 to 2012.
We look at it as 3 different levels. So there's a commercial trophy side, which is your horn, your ivory, your pelts, etc. Then there's a commercial bushmeat side, which is very much economics and commercial. And then there's the lesser side, which is your subsistence poaching.
To publicize laws banning the illegal sale of ivory and horns, the United States and other countries hold media events where the contraband is crushed into rubble, rendering it worthless. But this hasn't stopped the trade. While Asia may be the biggest market, demand for ivory and horn was once high in the United States too, but attitudes in the States are changing. Congress is currently considering a bill called the End Wildlife Trafficking Act to crack down on people dealing in poached ivory, horns, and other wildlife products. Jamil Bandima of the African Wildlife Foundation says the proposal, sponsored by Republican Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona and Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, would foster international cooperation on combating the loss of species endangered by poaching.
So once the U.S. put as part of their legislation laws that seek to strengthen combating wildlife trafficking, it means that everybody else will take a look and follow suit.
But for the elephants, rhinos, and other endangered wildlife of Africa, every day is a matter of life and death. Until the demand for wildlife artifacts is suppressed or stopped, they remain caught in the crosshairs.
Well, Jeffrey Young now joins us to tell us more about this very disturbing story. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Vincent.
Now, first, tell us a little bit about this End Wildlife Trafficking Act.
Well, I'll give you a highlight of some of the major provisions of this. It sets up a government, U.S. government interface with the governments in Africa and in Asia and in other affected areas. And the idea behind this is coordination, so that what we do internally in the United States government is known to the other governments, and what they do is known to us. We need to talk to each other. Everything starts with coordination and communication. It also sets up training. United States money and effort will be put into training wildlife protection people in Africa, park rangers, other people that deal with wildlife. So there'll be money, there'll be funding, there'll be training to help them along. It also is promoting international agreements between the United States and other countries to strengthen laws on the killing of wildlife, the trafficking in animal artifacts, whether it be rhino horn or tusk, or even the skins of these animals, to make this illegal. And it sets up a rigorous reporting system so that we know what's happening, how many of these killings are going on, where is it going, where are the products going. It sets up reporting. With reporting, then you can take action.
And we know that as long as there is a market for this product, these animals will continue dying. And the biggest market is in Asia. So how do they enforce these laws in Asia, or how does the international community put more pressure on the Asian nations so that they stop the consumption of this product, the buying of this product?
The demand in Asia is huge. A great deal of the ivory goes there. The United States is also culpable too. For years, tons of ivory products have been in the United States. But in terms of other nations, what you need to do is, to use a Washington term, encourage other countries. Now, encourage can also mean putting your thumb on them sometimes. You can encourage them by saying, if you don't help us in this area, maybe we'll not be able to help you in some development thing or some project that you're doing. Encouragement is getting people to go along with the plan. And that's a part of this.
All right. And I like that part where, you know, helping the indigenous people, the locals themselves, to really protect their wildlife, if they understand the value in the long term.
True. The saddest part of it is that in so many of these things, money talks. Yeah. If you've got somebody who's poor, who's living out in the bush, and someone comes to him, some agent for a Chinese ivory buyer or whatever comes to him and says, how would you like a pile of money? Go out and get that rhino. Go out and get that elephant. It may be more money than these people have ever seen before. Yeah. Or it's so much that it gets people to do the wrong thing, Vince.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
For joining us today. Jeffrey Young is a senior investigative analyst at the Voice of America. Now, 2 Nigerian communities were given the go-ahead Wednesday to pursue compensation claims against oil giant Shell through the British courts. They claim leaks from pipelines have devastated the local environment in the Niger Delta. Henry Ridgewell reports.
The Ogale people claim oil spills from Shell pipelines since 1989 have ruined their coastal fisheries and water supply. The nearby Bile community are also suing Shell for allegedly failing to protect the pipelines from damage caused by people trying to steal the oil, so-called bunkering. Martin Day, lawyer for the Ogale and Bile claimants, says it is Shell's responsibility to prevent the thefts.
In any other part of the world, there will be a heck of a lot more done by an oil company to try and prevent it happening. And when it does happen, to make sure, firstly, you know as soon as it's happened, so good early warning systems. And secondly, that you immediately close down the pipeline to make sure that any leakage is very, very minimal.
Shell declined an interview but issued a statement saying that the areas are heavily impacted by crude oil theft, pipeline sabotage and illegal refining, which remain the main sources of pollution. Shell also pointed out it has produced no oil or gas in Ogoniland, which includes the Ogale area, since 1993.
Shell's pipelines pass through both Ogale and Bile, and it has been leaks from those pipes that have caused the damage. So the fact that Shell no longer actually extracting oil from the ground under those areas is really neither here nor there. In the end, it is their oil that has caused the damage.
Last year, British courts ruled Shell had to pay $77 million in compensation to the Bodo community in the Delta, whose land had also been hit by oil spills.
No question, but Shell don't want a repeat of that, so that's what they've been objecting to the case being heard in the UK. So we're very pleased that the judge has agreed to let us crack on with the case here.
Shell says it has already agreed to an 18-month clean-up plan with local communities and the United Nations and is expected to argue that the cases should be heard in Nigeria. A date for the next hearing in London is yet to be decided. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Well, for more on the lawsuit against Shell company, journalist Paul Okoye joins me live via Skype from Abuja, Nigeria. And now, Paul, first tell us what has been the reaction in Nigeria to this decision by the courts.
It's usually very, very consistent in this area. Whenever there is a decision in favor of the people of the oil-producing Niger Delta, there is a sense of relief that at last the case is getting mentioned and that ultimately the people are going to get justice. So it's a sense of relief that people feel out here, and they are happy that at last this has come to international limelight.
Now, Paul, we know that this is not the first time that locals have actually tried to sue oil companies. This has happened in the past. Tell us, has there been any success, and to what extent has that benefited the local communities?
There have been successes in the past, not as much as the people would have loved to have, but a few cases have scaled through, especially coming from London or The Hague, and as a result of those cases, there have been some work done on the ground to make sure that the pollution caused by the effect of oil drilling is addressed. And we also get a sense that the oil companies are a bit more careful now with their operations, and they are not as careless as they used to be in those days when they operated almost unquestionably, and they were not answerable to anybody for misbehaviors.
Paul, what do people say regarding the government of Nigeria's concerns about the people who live in the areas where oil is taken from? Do they enforce, does the government enforce any laws there?
The government is trying to be more proactive and to be more responsive to the needs of the people of the oil-producing area these days. In those days of military rule, the same was not the case, as the government was grossly inefficient and they were not answerable to anybody. But in this era of civil administration, we have seen an improvement in governance on the ground, and efforts are being made to make the people feel the effect of oil that is being produced by their community. And even the revenue that accrue to the revenues that accrue to the oil-producing areas have gone up, and there is a commission now, the Niger Delta Development Commission, set up to look after their interests. And a lot more is being done now than in the past.
Paul, thank you very much for your reporting there. Paul Okoye is an Abuja-based journalist reporting live via Skype from Abuja. Now, the European Council President Donald Tusk is calling on EU countries to work together in solving the migrant crisis. He says the lack of unity is eroding trust between the members. Now, following a meeting with Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras Thursday, Tusk urged illegal migrants to stay away from Europe.
Do not come to Europe. Do not believe the smugglers. Do not risk your lives and your money. It is all for nothing. Greece or any other European country will no longer be a transit country.
Well, meanwhile, migrants attempting to leave Greece Thursday are not being allowed into Macedonia. They say they are being turned away because their documents have a computer-generated stamp from the Greek police that is not being accepted by Macedonia. Their dilemma is one of the latest obstacles facing migrants attempting to travel across Europe. The EU Council President is slated to meet with Turkish President Recep Erdogan in Istanbul on Friday. Turkey is offering to sign readmission agreements with 14 countries, which would enable Ankara to quickly take back migrants rejected by the EU. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Well, coming up, the CDC warns the U.S. Congress about the spread of the Zika virus. Stay with us.
Science and technology, here's what's new.
There's something new on the beaches of Australia, or actually nearby in the water. It's a so-called clever buoy that uses technology to scan the surf for sharks and then warn people in real time via mobile app. Craig Anderson with Shark Mitigation Systems explains how the buoy works.
So it uses a multi-beam sonar, which is relatively new sonar technology, coupled with some software that we've co-written.
If the buoy detects anything swimming underwater larger than 2 meters in length, it automatically sends out a warning to the app, alerting anyone in the area. That gives lifeguards a heads up about a possible shark so they can keep the beaches safe. And with time, we may see more clever buoys popping up off Australia's other beaches. For What's New, I'm Doug Bernard.
Welcome back. It's time for Health Reports, and joining us now is Africa 54 Health correspondent Lino Mudu with new information on the Zika virus. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Vincent. The director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says that by the end of the year, the number of Zika virus infections could rise to be hundreds of thousands. The World Health Organization declared the Zika outbreak suspected of causing thousands of birth defects in Brazil an international health emergency on February 1st. But much about the virus remains unknown. In testimony to the U.S. House Energy and Commerce Committee, Dr. Thomas Frieden says Puerto Rico may be particularly hard hit. He also says the CDC was examining the rapid rate of infection in Puerto Rico of chikungunya, another mosquito-borne viral illness which widely affected the island in 2014. Zika shares some of the same pathogenistic characteristic as chikungunya. Both diseases are transmitted by the Aedes aegypti mosquito.
There's a limited window of opportunity to take action. When we look at chikungunya, which affected Puerto Rico started in 2014, within 2 months, it was all over the island. Within 8 months, 1 out of 4 adults were infected. If that pattern is followed with Zika, we could see hundreds of thousands of infections by the end of the year.
Now, the issue that we're really concentrating much of our effort on is the issue of vaccines. And we now do have a couple of candidates that we're looking at putting into a phase 1 trial, hopefully by the end of this summer and early fall, which will take a couple of months to determine if, in fact, they're safe, and do they induce an immune response that will allow us to go to the next phase of the response, which is an efficacy phase.
Now, tech companies are stepping up to help in the fight against Zika. Google just announced that it is providing a grant of $1 million to the United Nations Children's Emergency Fund to analyze data in an effort to map and anticipate the spread of the Zika virus. Another tech company, SeekWeather, has now launched a SeekWeather Groups, an open messaging platform for anonymously reporting and monitoring disease outbreaks such as Zika or Ebola. And joining us for more on the subject is Graham Dodge, CEO of Sick Weather. Mr. Dodge, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
So we know that when it comes to disease outbreaks such as Zika and Ebola, surveillance is key. Accurate data is key indeed in terms of monitoring and addressing the issue. Can you tell us about this and why it's important for you to get involved?
Sure. Well, because early detection allows you to have prevention. So the sooner you know about an illness outbreak or an emerging infectious disease, the sooner people can respond and the medical professionals in the community can respond.
Now, tell us about this app that you came up with, which is on your website, sickweather.com.
Yes, Sick Weather is a free mobile app that anyone can download for iPhone and Android that will tell you in real time where and when illnesses are going around. So it uses social media, essentially, for people, listening for people talking about symptoms of illnesses, aggregates all that data in real time, and lets you know when you enter a sick zone for norovirus or flu. And we are, in fact, working on surveillance for Zika as well.
So new technologies today are like almost in every aspect of our lives nowadays. What are the advantages of an app when it comes to disease surveillance that we didn't have before?
Well, there was no real-time source of data before that allowed this kind of early detection. And with the advent of social media, you basically have a real-time census of people sharing their symptoms and illnesses. If you can filter that correctly the way we have with Sick Weather, you now have this real-time insight into how illnesses are spreading. And that's exactly what Sick Weather does.
So how does this work, really? Anybody can report?
Correct. So we gather data in two ways. One is through listening to social media, sites like Facebook and Twitter, for public posts of people sharing symptoms like, my kid has the flu, or I have strep, or things like that. Or you can download the free app and report directly to Sick Weather which illnesses you're experiencing. And with Sick Weather groups, you can now share that directly with a location such as a school, a workplace, a hospital, which are really sort of these vectors of illnesses in and of themselves.
Now, where we stand, looking at where we stand with the Zika outbreak, how is Sick Weather going to contribute, especially with the Olympics coming soon in Brazil?
Correct. So the first stage for us is to allow people to openly report any illness, whether it's Zika, Ebola, anything that we may not be tracking yet in terms of providing that surveillance on a map. But our goal is to get that surveillance in place in time for the Olympics in Rio this summer.
What other features do you have?
So with the Sick Weather app, you can be notified in real time with a sick zone alert when you enter a sick zone. You can also get your sick score, which is like a contagious threat level index, letting you know how much risk there is of contagious illness in your immediate area, and that score changes as you move about the city.
And so then if you are able to know if you are in an area where there is a disease, can this be a concern if somebody being worried, maybe a little too worried?
Well, sure. Yes, there is that element to it, but mostly the testimonials we're receiving are from moms, with young kids who thank us because, now that they know strep is going around in their neighborhood, they get their kid tested for strep. And in one case that we were told about, he tested positive for strep just at the first sign of a fever. So she was able to get her son on antibiotics sooner so that he wasn't contagious and he'd go back to school and she could go back to work. So there's a sort of pre-diagnosis and preventative, just general proactive measures that people can now take that were never available before.
Okay, and let me mention that it's available on iPhone and all the other app store out there. Thank you so much, Mr. Dodge Graham.
Thank you, Lenore.
And Graham Dodge is CEO of Sick Weather. That's our Africa Health Report for today. Vincent?
Well, Lenore, thanks. And be sure to watch Lenore Madu's Health Reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Bollywood, beware. India's neighbor sees a revival in its film industry. We'll be right back.
Sabemos que é material muito usado e a gestão que está a fazer. E que passeava na zona de Vilanculos. J'ai mis les corps pour accélérer la mise en place.
Le plus dramatique, ce sont les conditions de détention qui deviennent de plus en plus difficiles.
This is for 1 month.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Lego Star Wars is back with another miniseries following the success of the Yoda Chronicles. Droid Tales takes place after the events of Return of the Jedi, allowing C-3PO and R2-D2 to tell the story of all that came before. Their flashbacks start with Episode 1 and move their way forward. In addition to recopying both the prequel and original trilogy, now the Droid Tales also recap some of the adventures from fellow Disney XD series Star Wars Rebels. All 5 episodes clock in at a total of nearly 2 hours of content. Lego Star Wars Droid Tales is now out on DVD. Well, next up, at the 29th bike show in Taiwan, hybrid bikes are starting to make waves. As more and more people are interested in green energy and healthy lifestyles, many bicycle makers are coming up with more innovative and high-performance bikes to attract new riders. A Taiwanese bike company giant is showcasing high-performance bikes designed to help riders achieve speed and endurance in triathlon events. Electric hybrid bikes are also gaining popularity. Equipped with battery-powered pedals, the hybrid bike has a torque sense measuring the pushing force on pedals and giving the power in proportion to the pedaling. And finally, move over Bollywood. Well, Pakistani filmmakers are hard at work trying to provide an alternative to the country's negative image that often dominates international news media. Theirs is a Pakistan where love flourishes and music and laughter prevails. Their efforts are bearing fruit with a number of releases of high-quality productions on the rise. Until 5 years ago, only 24 films were released. That's according to Pakistan Film Producers Association, of which 18 were low-budget regional productions. In 2015, the number of Urdu films alone was close to 30. This revival of films has continued in 2016 with several blockbusters already playing to full houses along with getting international recognition. And that is what is trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa, between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords.
Here is a story about U.S. Vice President Joe Biden's recent trip. He was meeting with the president of Turkey.
Facilitate. This is their first meeting since the vice president alleged in a speech last month that Ankara helped facilitate the rise of the extremist group by allowing foreign fighters to cross into Syria from Turkey. The comments outraged Turkey's president.
Facilitate means to help cause something to happen or to make something easier. This can be seen as a good or a bad thing.
In our story, the U.S. had accused Turkey of helping an extremist group.
Now, the next time you hear facilitate, you will know what this news word means.